And we're back. Welcome to episode 7 of the Sobriety.Matters podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Blair, who some of you may know in the social media sober world as Sober Activist. And I have to admit, I had a bit of a moment in this episode where I felt myself fanboying with Blair just a little. And as I was reviewing the pre-show notes, I started to see a lot of similarities between us. But once we got into this episode and started talking, there was a whole lot more than I actually expected. So I hope you all enjoy this episode as much as we did recording it. Throughout this episode, we touch on being a person that is all or nothing, and something that isn't always talked about, and definitely not for every person looking at or living in sobriety. And that is something that sobriety is going to be a forever thing from the start. This is one of those things that Blair and I share, and we chat a bit about how this is oftentimes viewed, and even our feelings on it a little. We also get into who many of us find ourselves to be, and that is an all-or-nothing individual who is an extreme extrovert, when in reality, we are definitely all-or-nothing people, but that flamboyant behavior may have been a little more of that alcohol than we expected. We also get into Blair's passion for writing, and how that, even though she may not consider it a tool, I think it is a tool for her, and we talk about that, and I hope it exposes the listeners to the amount of writing that Blair has out there, and some of you are able to go and take a look at a lot of that. As a quick reminder, I do want to mention that ratings and reviews in your podcast platforms where you listen to this podcast are the best way to take our sober messages to the masses, and I greatly appreciate those reviews and ratings. So let's get into the episode, and let's chat with Blair. Hello, Blair, and welcome to the Sobriety Matters podcast. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening to join me here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So let's start out with just a little bit of background about yourself, maybe where you're from, a little bit about maybe the family, and how long have you been sober?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Blair, and I am from Minnesota. I don't think I can say that without making that joke, right? And I will have 4 years being alcohol free in February. Close enough now so I can say like it will be in February. And I am a wife and a mom to a 5-year-old little boy. And I work full time. I work at the Mayo Clinic here in Rochester. And I work in psychology. So I am a psychometrist, which no one ever knows what that means. But I give patients thinking tests, basically like memory and things like that. So, and I've been there for almost 8 years. So, and I also do writing on the side, just kind of for fun and kind of turning it into kind of a side gig at the moment. So, yeah.
Great. No, that's good. And I always love doing these things because the first thing was you covered the Minnesota thing for me. I don't have to try to,
yeah, you don't have to make fun of me.
So that's good. You covered that piece. And then in the upfront questions, you had put that you were from Red Wing, Minnesota. I didn't know anything about it. So I went and checked it out. And then Rochester, I didn't know anything about Rochester.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first thing I saw was the Mayo Clinics there. I'm like,
Yep.
Okay, that gives me some context of what's happened. And lo and behold, you work there. So
Yes.
It all kind of comes together. So awesome. So let's just dive in here and let's have you tell us your story.
Sure.
Kind of your story with alcohol, where it began, when it became a problem, and kind of your journey into sobriety and recovery.
Yeah. So when I start my story, I guess I usually start it, when I first drank, which was towards the end of high school, 16, 17 ish. But recently I did a feature for there's some writing, and I talked a little bit about just kind of like when I first noticed alcohol, right, in my life. And so that would be when I was, I don't even know how young, but elementary school age, probably. I do remember going up north to northern Minnesota with my dad every summer, and we would go fishing and hang out on the lake. We'd stay in his friend's cabin, and another place in the woods called the Shack. So, probably what that, entailed, just kind of a house in the woods with beds, right? And outhouses and the whole thing. So, and I remember, they would be drinking all the time. So nothing ever like, I don't remember anything ever getting out of hand. I don't remember any like bad moments. I just know that alcohol was there. And so I think that was my first time ever kind of being around it. And growing up, my dad did have a problem with alcohol, but it wasn't something that was talked about a lot. It wasn't like a trauma for me. Like, it's nothing bad in my childhood from it. But it was just there that he kind of struggled with always. And there would be times where my mom tells me this now too. There's times just like how I could go, a few weeks or whatever and not have a problem just not drinking. And he would go the same, he would be sober for a while, and then, he would just drink again. And he kind of the same way. I didn't ever have an off switch, kind of the same kind of things. That now I'm talking about. My mom's like, oh yeah, your dad was like that too, So, but really actually me drinking was later in high school. And I played basketball, so it was pretty easy to get caught drinking if you played sports. So that was a big reason probably that I didn't. And the people that I was around didn't really start until at that point either. So it just didn't come up. But when it did, I jumped at it, and I tried it just like you do in high school, right? And there were some moments in high school where like I got too drunk. I definitely remember those. But I didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought it was like what you do, and you get, you see it on movies and TV and everywhere. It's like you get a little too drunk your first few times drinking or whatever it was. So I never thought that it was anything like out of the ordinary. And then in college, I moved to Rochester, where I live now. So still close enough to my parents, like about an hour away, but you're on your own in college, so you can kind of do whatever you want. And that's when I really hit the drinking hard. It was like, that's what we did. We partied, we went to school too, but that wasn't the highlight of our college time. It was the parties and the drinking and the fun, like where's the next party? And it was a lot of blacking out. I blacked out throughout my drinking, not every single time, but a lot of the times there would be parts of the night that would be unclear, or someone would need to remind me what we did or how we got home, or where did we end up, or if we stayed at somebody's house, like I didn't remember getting there. But again, like that was a lot of the things that other people were experiencing that I was around too. So I didn't think of it as like, I'm the only one and this is bad and I need to kind of chill out. And I never really thought like I should assess my alcohol drinking. Even, there's a lot of like lost items and falls, ER visits, you name it, just like bad decisions, just like a whole bunch of bad decisions. I could just go on and on. And then when I was 25, I had just met my husband and I got a DWI. I had just met him like 6 months before. And then I got that, and that I had to spend 2 nights in jail actually. Because I blew so high. I blew like a 0.28, and then a 0.29 when I got to the jail. And so I had to stay there because of the level until I could go to court, which was 2 days later. So I had to stay there. And that was, I kind of just kept to myself while I was there. So I didn't really, come out and like talk to anybody else in there. I didn't I was obviously still hungover while I was there, too. But even through all that, like, I wasn't like, oh, wow, I should stop. I should, cause I knew friends or other people that were getting these too. And they were having, these bad moments kind of like I was too. So I never really thought like it was an issue. And I And I never really was held accountable by, anybody else either. So, like my husband would kind of make rules. We weren't married then, but he would say like, okay, well, if you're going to go over to so-and-so's house, just spend the night there. Like, don't get a cab home or whatever. Because I don't want to talk to you at 3:00 in the morning. He doesn't drink. So I never really like made those rules for myself. He would make those little rules here and there. I never did like the moderation thing where like, I'm going to drink water in between each drink. Cause like, I just didn't see the point of that. It was like, what, I know that this is how I am. I have no off switch. And that's just how it's going to be. This is just how I drink. I'm not going to stop, because I'm not one of those people that needs to stop, really. That's kind of like how I always felt. So, I got pregnant. We got married and I had my son in 2016. And so I, quit drinking right when I found out that I was pregnant. No problems doing that. It was fine. And then when I had him, I kind of slowly eased back into it. And I kind of feel like my body, obviously your body's different after you have a baby, but I feel like it hit me differently when I drank after I had him too. And so I think, obviously it hit me a little harder because I had been so long since I had drank, but I still drank the same amount. Like it slowly went back up to just no off switch. So I just knew that solidified what I already knew, that I didn't have this off switch. So yeah. And I kept drinking pretty regularly, like more of like a weekend type drinker, like, Friday night after the work week. I'd pretty much get blackout drunk and then be hungover for a couple days, and then like physically hungover for a couple days, super bad hangovers because I would drink so much. I would drink like multiple bottles of wine, whatever was in the house, until like I just decided I'd go to bed. Like super fun, right? Sounds super great, super good time. Yeah. So then after those hangovers, I would have like these emotional hangovers, for the couple days that would follow. Like it's Monday, when I'm at work and I'm like, oh, I just wasted my whole weekend being like drunk and then hungover. Like I literally wasted days. Like I had these days off of work and I just wasted them. They're just gone now. And now I'm back at work again and miserable. And like, why did I do that? And like, I knew that I like couldn't drink like a regular person or whatever you want to call it. But it was never like something that really, again, made me want to stop, I guess. It was just like those feelings would wear off. And then, Friday would come again. And then I'd have another reason to drink because it was Friday and I'm a mom now, so I have this reason I need to relax and I deserve it because I'm a mom and like, what society tells us. So that went on for 18 months. And then when my son was 18 months, I just had another one of those nights, Friday again, drinking too much, hangovers into Monday. And it was Monday morning. And I read a blog while I was at work about a mom that didn't drink. And I looked her up. I listened to her on a podcast. I typed her name in Facebook and I sent her a message, like this really long message, like, I need to stop. I know I need to stop. The couple nights before where I was drinking, I had fallen and broke a wine glass, tripped over the baby gate, which could have happened any night. Like this wasn't the first time I fell and broke something, you know what I mean? So it's nothing out of the ordinary that last time that I drank. I was just like, finally, like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just can't continue to do the same. It was like this cycle I was stuck in. So sent her this really long message and she surprisingly reached out back to me like right away. And we talked and she gave me some advice, like what to do, here's this book that I liked, this podcast that I like that helped me, look up this person on Instagram, things like that. So I haven't drank since that day or, that weekend. So yeah.
There's so many things that are so typical and so many things that are yours, that are your own story there. So
yeah, I like to say my story is not unique at all. It's
not, but it is exactly what it needs to be. And
Right.
it has those few pieces though that someone hopefully is going to hear this or meet you, and that same exact thing is going to happen.
Right.
That to where you found your person and
Right.
reached out to them. So yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. So with no major rock bottom, I mean, obviously the DWI
Yeah.
at 25 was a scenario. But when you decided I've got to do
Mm-hmm.
this, and you reached out to that person, what was your, what was not your relationship, but how did you feel with alcohol at that
Mm-hmm.
point? Like, was it just I'm absolutely done, or was it more of a I know I need to do this, and you gradually got into the okay, this is how this is going to work?
Yeah. I know, and a lot of people, a lot of people say like one day at a time, and don't worry about quitting forever, just quit for today. And like, I had to just say it was over. I had to just be like, kind of like, if I'm an all or nothing person, like it had to be nothing. Like I said, I've never like been one to moderate or like keep an eye on how much I'm drinking. It was just like off to the races every time. So it had to just be like from the beginning, I knew that I had to just be done, because I knew that if I drink again, it's just going to be the same thing every time. It's the same story. So and I don't think that I feel like with the way my brain is made up, right? Which probably is a little bit of like genetics, and then, everything else, like with who I was friends with and what group I was with in college and where I went to college, and just like everything that like happened. I don't think it would have turned out any other way. You know what I mean? And just like my personality is just like very like all or nothing. So yeah, it had to be nothing for me. And so like I have a hard time sometimes when people struggle with that, like they struggle with the thought of forever, and I have a hard time giving them advice because I didn't see it that way. Like for me it was like, no, like there's no going back, like it's done. If I go back, it's going to be the same thing. And my husband and I have talked recently too, like I could probably go back and drink right now, and I could probably moderate or watch it, like, even up to like a year, we were saying like I could probably do that, but like the amount of thinking that would take to like, that would just be, it wouldn't be worth it, like, and I wouldn't enjoy it. It's not like I'm doing it for fun. Like I would probably not even make it that long, because I would just give up, because it wasn't doing its job, right? Alcohol's job to relax or, make us enjoy life or whatever it's supposed to do. um, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because I before we started the recording, I told you that
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I saw some similarities in between you and I from reading some of your stuff that you sent to me prior. I too have been that person that from the day, I won't say the day I stepped in detox, but
Mm-hmm.
within 48 hours, I knew who I was from a like mental standpoint, that
Yeah.
I'm an all or nothing person. I'm all in. And I felt like in early detox and then into my intensive outpatient program,
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was forever. I was like, it has to be forever, because
Right.
there's no way that I can go anywhere else. And so through that period in intensive outpatient, they teach you the one day at a time, the 12 steps and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And I love it. And it's exactly where I needed to be and exactly what I needed to do. And there were times that I had a couple counselors like, don't, don't get too arrogant. Don't get, whatever.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that as well, because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm being arrogant. I just know
Yeah.
I know what I have to do for myself. And so I'm in a few different sober groups. And
Mm-hmm.
the one piece that I too struggle with,
Yeah.
I'm giving advice, because the rest of it I feel like I can talk to pretty well. The one thing for me is the whole
forever. Like it has to, I mean, I sometimes just like want to shake somebody and be like, it has to be forever. Like it has to be.
Like, don't you have enough proof?
Right.
Like that if you go back, like that's what it's going to be like. And why are we letting alcohol, like you're letting it dictate your life? You know what I mean? Like we're giving it all the power when like, it's just this thing, like you could just not do it. And it's not, I mean, okay, we can say that now, right? We're far enough away, but like, just don't drink. But for me, that really was sort of an easy part. Like it was everything that came after, you know, like figuring out, okay, who am I without it? Like that was the hard part. And then I'm still figuring that out, you know, almost 4 years. That doesn't come right away.
Yeah, that's definitely where I'm at as well. Still, I mean, every day I'm like, oh, that's actually who I am. And, you know, I'd never taken the Enneagram test, and I took that and I actually saw it and I'm like, holy crap, this thing really will tell you who you are. Like I started reading through that and I'm like, what in the world? But and that's why I love doing this, because every person that I have on, there's something that I find that I can relate to, and hopefully the folks that listen to it, you know, take something from this. But I want everyone to also know that, you know, Blair and I are not sitting here saying we're the coolest, because when we started, we knew it was forever. Like we get it. There's a lot of people that forever scares the living shit out of them. And if that's you, then take it one day at a time and take it slowly. You know, I actually have one day at a time tattooed on my arm, but one day at a time for me is more of the wake up, focus on your sobriety, learn more about yourself, and work through what you need to work through one day at a time, as opposed to just don't pick up and drink. Because for me in sobriety, not picking up has been a little bit easier than it has been for some other folks. So yeah, that's interesting. And I love that we have that. So it looks like, you know, when you first started into your recovery, looks like you dove into Quit Lit and podcasts and the social media groups.
So I like dove in, like I went all in, right? Like we are saying we are all or nothing. I was like, okay, I am now the person who doesn't drink. Like, let me do all the things. And it was just like, I mean, I was reading, okay, so I hadn't read books, right? I mean, you're supposed to read books in college. Like I was one of those people that like skimmed them or like just try to find the answer, you know, cheat my way through, like whatever. I never read books for fun, right? Because it's like I would go out drinking for fun. Who's going to sit around and read books? So I like honestly probably hadn't read a book since I was like in high school, maybe. I don't even know. And I was reading like 2 or 3 books a month, like these Quit Lit memoirs, you know, and like on the like audiobooks, you know, I could just listen to those forever, like when I'm doing anything. Podcasts, all the things. I created my own like sober Instagram account, not this one that I have now, the Sobriety Activist, but a different one that was just for me personally to like talk about it, because I didn't have anybody in real life that I could really talk to that really understood, you know, so that was good to have that Instagram. Someone had told me like way in the beginning to make that. So that was good. And then, like Facebook groups, all sorts of those things. And then eventually it got a little, I mean, that's all I was doing. Right. So like my husband would be like, oh my God, you're on Marco Polo again, like with Sober Sis, the Sober Sis group, you know, like whatever, everything I was doing. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So then I kind of like dialed it back. And then it was like, okay, I'm not just a person who doesn't drink. That's part of who I am. But like, what do I actually like to do? Like, and you have to like learn that, right? Cause like, I didn't know throughout my 20s, you know, I quit drinking when I was 32. My entire 20s are just like a blur of partying. Like you kind of think like, okay, all that wasted time. But I mean, where would I be today if it weren't for that time? You know what I mean? Like would I be sitting here talking to you right now? You know, probably not. So I try not to like dwell on that and like regret things. I mean, obviously there's phones I wish I wouldn't have lost, and, you know, scratches on my face I wish I don't have, right? So like things like that, but you know, it's all part of the story. So
yeah, and It's funny too, because I started saving all this money from not drinking, and then all of a sudden I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm spending all that money on all these books that I'm now reading. And so
Right.
I mean, I could turn around on this shelf over here and just start
Yeah.
probably pulling out every memoir and every book that I'm
Yep.
guessing you too have probably
Yeah.
read.
Right.
So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. So through all of those, do you have one particular or two particular favorite quit lit books that have
I
really stuck with
do.
you?
Well, the one that really helped me, and that I read first was This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And I always suggest that one to people who are just starting out, because that was just like mind blowing to me. Like I didn't know anything really about alcohol. Um, and that one really made me realize like, whoa, we like actually don't need it. Like we don't need it to relax. We don't need it to celebrate. We don't need it to do everything we're told we need it to do. There actually are people out there who don't drink, like they're not all people that are homeless or on the streets and all this, what the stigma tells us. So that book was like huge for me. And then I really love everything that Laura McCowan does. And she wrote We Are the Luckiest. And she had a podcast back in the day called Home Podcast with Holly Whitaker. And that podcast I listened to like religiously, in my all or nothing first stages there. And so I really like clung on to her story. And then her book came out. And of course, I read it like twice in the first month it came out. And then I flew to Denver to see her at her book signing. And Annie Grace was there too. It was like a surprise. And I total fangirled at that. But yeah, those two books are my two favorites, I would say.
Of course, and those two are right my top three without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually, for me, AA meetings were a big part of my first 18 months. And then, we went into the world of COVID, and
Yeah.
meetings were still there, but everybody was like, scared shitless. And what do we do here? And
Right.
so actually, TLC, the luckiest club, I actually used those meetings quite a bit in the early pandemic. And those were
are good.
those were my go-to meetings for quite some time. So yep, those did This Naked Mind. I mean, that one for me, I think, was the science in it of like, you don't need it, and two, it is absolute poison that you are putting into your body. That's the one that made me realize, like, holy cow. Like,
and why aren't we like taught that? You know what I mean? Like maybe we are for like a week or something, but I don't know.
I don't think
believe it, or we don't want to believe it. You know what I mean?
That's,
Like
yes,
try
absolutely.
telling a person who loves their alcohol that they shouldn't be, or loves anything really, right? Like, you love your McDonald's, but like someone's telling you it's not good for you. It's like, well,
right. Yeah.
I'll take my chances on the McDonald's, or whatever.
You see shows on TV. They're like, oh, we're going to do this test, and we're going to watch this guy if he drinks this much for an hour.
Yeah.
And they do these tests. And after I read that book, I'm like, well, that's all bull crap. Like, that is all crap. Like, they are not really doing the test, because this stuff is just pure gasoline that you're putting into your body. So, and so, and then there's another one that I really like by Lisa Smith. It's A Girl Walks Out of a Bar. It's her memoir.
I think I've read that. I've read so many, they all run together.
Yeah. So that one, she's a lawyer.
She's a lawyer?
Lawyer in New York. Yeah. And that one stuck with me because of her writing style, just the grit and the darkness that was in it. And some people that know me, they're like, there's something wrong with you, because you read so much about alcoholism. Like, why would you do that to yourself? And I'm like, that's what keeps me sober. I'm like, that's the stuff I want to do. But yeah, if anyone is, I don't suggest that book for early sobriety, but if you've got a couple years under you, I suggest reading Girl Walks Out of a Bar. And it's just the grit, and with that one, and also We Are the Luckiest with Laura and Lisa, where I related to them was my life in the corporate world.
Right.
Because I was climbing the corporate ladder,
Mm-hmm.
and being successful up until the point that I had just started to fumble things at work. And honestly, that's where my push to get into sobriety came from. It came from
Yeah.
work. It came from
Okay.
a couple of individuals at work that they were like, something's not right. This isn't you. What the hell's going on? A couple
Yeah.
of them worked with me directly in the office and were like, yeah, we know
Yeah.
what you're doing. They were right there. So
But it's so big in those circles,
it is. And
circle communities. Yeah.
I was traveling the country doing, marketing events, and
Yeah.
it's just part of it. I mean, it is what it
Yep.
is. And unfortunately, the majority of people in society can handle their alcohol
Yeah.
and their
Or they think they can. I mean,
that is
some
true
people
too.
think they can.
They could do it better than I could. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And
Right.
unfortunately, sometimes I can handle mine too damn well, because I think
Yeah.
most days I was probably functioning normal at like a 0.15 BAC.
Right.
Like that's when I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now we're good. Let's go here for today. So
Exactly.
yeah. So let's talk about what you do in your profession, because it's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat related to psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone that's maybe in early sobriety or sober curious, they're probably like, well, if this person's in psychology, like, don't they know how to control their own
You would
brain?
think, right? You would
Yeah,
think so.
right. So just talk a little bit about what you've learned about yourself, a little,
Yeah.
that deep dive into it, and how you've worked to, I guess we could just say, kind of rewire your brain, or what things are
Mm-hmm.
you doing in life to make sure that you're going down that path.
Yeah. And like I said before, like I didn't really know who I really was before. I just thought I thought I was this like extroverted, loud, kind of want to be like the popular party girl, like not afraid to go up and talk to anybody, whatever. But also I loved, laying on the couch because I was hungover, whatever. So turns out I'm a huge introvert, right? I like don't want to talk to anybody, please cancel the plans. Like I'm totally fine, so that was like a huge wake up to me. Like I just thought that I was like this. I'm still like loud, obnoxious, whatever. I'll strike up a conversation in an elevator, but just kind of figuring out like who I was without it was so, and like we said, still is so much of my journey, if you will. I've also realized that I'm a little bit more anxious than I maybe had been before, but I was probably just numbed of that the whole time, or like we do, where we get nervous before we're going to go to something. We have a drink before, you pregame, you go have drinks before you go to the wedding or whatever it is. Like that was just always part of it. So I guess I never had to do any of that without alcohol. So especially those first few times, it was like super awkward. That awkward feeling like, okay, I'm like, you almost feel like just like so naked without it, because you had it there the whole time, every other time you did anything. But yeah, so I started going to therapy maybe last year, I think it was. We had been trying to have our second child and it wasn't working. And so I started going to therapy just for the heck of it, to talk to somebody. So I still do that, once a month. I suggest that to anyone. In fact, do it before your life starts falling apart, because you're going to need it when your life starts falling apart, and then you're not going to be able to find one. So a lot of the times I just do that, and we just like talk about what's going on. Like it's not even like, oh, here's what I need to work on this month or anything like that. It's just kind of like a person to talk to. But I have pretty much kept all the same friends. There's a few that kind of just naturally kind of distanced themselves, or just we hadn't, been super close. But otherwise, I have all the same friends. But I'm just kind of more focused on like relationships and not like what we're doing, like it could be, we're just hanging out. It doesn't have to be like a party all the time. Like, and just, I keep saying like figuring out who I am, but like, it's such a big part of it because like, I just never knew I was so like introverted as I am, now, I guess.
Yeah. I have a feeling my wife's going to listen to this episode and be like, I'm pretty sure you two may be the same person, because I was the same exact way. Like people met me and I was the life of the party. Like I showed up and I had this presence about me.
Yep.
And, sometimes I'll talk to people that were around me a lot when I was heavy in addiction. And I'm like, man, I had to have been such an asshole. And they're like, you weren't. And I'm like,
yeah,
I had to have been. Like, if I think back, and they're like, no, you weren't. That's why so many people didn't know. They're like, you weren't. But now I sit in my basement for work and I'm like, I don't want to leave. Like I'm cool with being here. I think I'm an introvert now.
Yeah.
And so it is just funny how you start to look at it and you realize how much you were masking who you truly were.
Right.
And again, that goes back to when you were talking about, I deserve this drink and I can drink now because I'm a mom and what we're taught by society. You don't see a single alcohol ad in the world that someone is stumbling around. No,
nope.
They're all on a boat having fun or at some, sporting event doing this.
Yep.
So it's just, it's
like a flash forward at 2 a.m. when they're waking up and they need a drink of water and they're like, don't know where they are. Like,
it sucks how it's depicted. And, I'm starting to see a wave though. I truly feel this. And I don't think it's just because I'm 3.5, almost 4 years into sobriety. Like I truly feel like that wave is coming. We kind of saw it with nicotine addiction. And when the science and the real story finally came out, people were like, oh, and I think some of us with the social media platform, taking the stigma away and really allowing so many of us to go out with our voice and knowing that if we do go out with our voice, we're not going to be reprimanded or held back or anything like that, because we're normal people. We are 100% normal people next door. The guy sitting in the cubicle next to you, that's just, that's who we are. Yeah. So, and
I think I was going to say, I think I found that with my, my Instagram and my writing that I do, like a lot of people, in my real life, right, quote unquote, will message me and say, I didn't notice all this marketing towards mothers with alcohol until you said something. And now I see it everywhere. And I'm like, it's always been everywhere. And I didn't see it before either. Because I was one of the people who was buying those, shirts or whatever it was. But like, so it's little by little, I really think it is. And with all these articles coming out and whenever I see like somebody looking for somebody to interview, I'm like, me, like, let's talk about it. Like, let's get it out there. And I agree with the social media piece too, and all these podcasts and everything. So that's why I will always agree to do like a podcast or whatever. Cause like you said earlier too, like somebody's going to listen to it and say, whoa, she didn't have any like huge, I had huge things that might make someone stop drinking, but like, it just gives someone the okay to stop drinking without those things they think they need, just like I needed. So.
Yeah. And I think the social media piece of it can be so ironic at times too, because like, social media can be an addiction if it's not handled in the right way. But I feel like it is driving such a platform for the sober community. And I've been just immersed in it over the last probably 24 months. And that's what drove me to start this thing. And I just love meeting people like you that are willing to stand up and have that conversation and just bring light to, all those things. Yeah. I mean, I too was that guy that was sharing the memes of, I'll never go to AA. I'm not a quitter. Drinkers don't quit and stupid stuff like that. And even I some days thank Facebook because it'll show me like, here's your memory from,
oh my gosh,
here's your memory from 5
years,
best
and the worst
from 5 years ago. Here's what you posted. And I'm like, oh you're such a dumbass. But it's like, it's such a good reminder to me that I'm like, oh Lord, I never want to go back and be that guy again. Like, let's go ahead and pin that one up on the wall over here so that we remember we were doing that crap.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So you mentioned your writing. And so what I do think is interesting is do
you write too?
I don't write. I do not write. I can write, but it's more of product marketing writing when I'm forced to do it at work. So technical writing. But the answer you gave me that you said I don't necessarily regularly use tools, but I think you do.
You think I do?
You have your therapy. But the tool that I would like to talk to you about, because I think you have a passion for it, is your writing. So just talk to us about your writing and how you got into that and the purpose that it serves for you.
Yeah. So again, while I was drinking and in my 20s, I didn't do any writing. That was like, writing my tab, tip or whatever it was. But when I was younger, like much younger, talking like middle school, elementary school, I was always super creative. I was writing stories all the time and making videos and, like on those old video cameras where you could like hold it and you could see the screen. And it was so cool because you could see the screen while you're recording, like one of those. And I would make these like slideshows of pictures and stuff. So I always used to do that. And then when I went to college, it was always about partying and everything. I never really did anything creative at all, really. And then when I guess when I was, 2018. So almost a year and a half after I quit drinking, when I was still drinking, I had applied to be a writer on this blog for this blog in my city, this parenting resource, and I didn't get it. And then a year and a half after I quit drinking, they were calling for writers again. So I said, okay, well, let me apply again. And each time they asked for like, well, what's your unique angle? Like, why would we want you over somebody else? Right. And so I probably just made up some BS the last time, like, whatever, because there's nothing cool about me. I'm just like, this girl likes to drink, I mean, I didn't write that in the application, but the second time I wrote, well, I don't drink. And, I'm looking at your website right now on the main page, I see, 2 blog posts about like related to alcohol, like, where's the best breweries, or I don't know what they were, something like that. I don't see any really that are about anything related to not drinking. So that's like my unique angle. So I got accepted, and that was in August of 2019. And, so I've been writing for them since then. My second post that I wrote for them was called "No Thanks, I Don't Drink." And so this was like my big kind of like coming out, to like my real people. Because I would share, all my posts on my Facebook page and everything else, and my personal Instagram. And that post actually was the most read post for that year for that website, that "No Thanks, I Don't Drink." So that was my first big writing about me not drinking. And I wrote a few more, I think, that year. Nothing like, a mocktail, like where to find the best mocktails in town. But I wasn't going to be just a writer about like quitting drinking and all that. And honestly, people who don't have an issue with alcohol don't really care. They don't want to read that. But it's there anyways for the people that do. And then, 2020. No, it was this year. I think this year has felt like there's been a lot.
It's
There's
okay
been a
if
lot
you can't remember.
I know, right?
there are things
earlier
that happened
this year.
Yeah, things happened 3 years ago, and I'm like, that just happened last month. And people
year.
are like, no, that was 3 years ago, and I'm like,
right.
oh. And then
I'm
things,
like, oh my gosh.
yeah, things are like, oh no, that just happened last week, and I'm like, that felt like it was 5 years ago. What? Are you
right.
sure? I trust me.
What is time? What is time? So I think it was earlier this year that I wrote. I was coming up on my 3 years of no drinking, and I wrote. So I originally that blog post that I was talking about, it was on Scary Mommy. It's a national publication website that has all these videos and whatever. So I wrote and submitted a post to Scary Mommy that said, a Scary Mommy post, helped me change my life and help me quit drinking, that whole thing. So I kind of wrote how reading that blog post that day really like changed the direction that I was going with my life. And they published it. Right. So this was like national publication, big time. For me at the time, I had just been writing these local blog posts for my city. And I was like, hey, I could probably do this. Like I could keep doing this, like just keep writing, whatever. So I started then writing for the Sober Curator website. I've written a little bit for Nope Beverages, Mocktail Club, drinks, some other just like Monument, like some other recovery type websites, because those are the ones that are like super easy for me, right? It's just like easy life story, those kind of things, or how I feel about this or whatever. And then I just kind of here and there, I work full time, so I have a husband and a 5-year-old. Anyone who has a small child knows that they keep you pretty busy. So I don't have a lot of time to do just, I'm not like wake up every morning and I have a half an hour to myself. Like I just don't have the time. So I write when I can. And I made up my own website this year to kind of like put all of my writing in one place. Otherwise it was kind of all over the internet. So I was just trying to keep it all in one place so I can send somebody like my website if I need to, but so I guess, yes, it is one of my tools. Fine. Therapy, writing, but I've never been like a journal person. And I think it's one of those things, like I can't do it all the way because like I feel like if I miss a day, then I'm like, oh, screw it. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. Like I try to do like those gratitude, like, oh, write 3 things you're grateful for every day when you wake up. And then like I miss a day. And then I feel like I would have to, what was I grateful for yesterday? I have to like write it down. And I'm very like specific about things and kind of perfectionist, it's a control thing, which a lot of us have, issues with control.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask if journaling led you into writing, or if writing was something that you had just always done, because so many people push journaling for,
I just can't get into it.
Spread. I personally have never gotten into it.
And that's fine, right? We're still
absolutely. Yeah. I think my journaling has become my Peloton.
There you go.
And the reason I say that is because the control freak in me now.
Yeah.
I started tracking numbers, and on the Peloton, they're like, don't track your numbers. It'll cause you. Mine weren't like, I have to get this next PR, or I have to get this.
Yeah.
I actually got to where I wanted to ride so consistent that like my graphs were like horizontal because I have this numbers thing in my head now in sobriety that I love even numbers. And
yes. Oh my gosh. I love that too.
I had to ride for at least 30 minutes one time a week. I just hit my full 2 years. And so like when I see these badges coming across, that's like, that's my journaling in life.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Oh, so I can't even take vacation for more than 7 days, because if I break
gotta get back to my Peloton.
It's unbelievable. It's absolutely
that's
unbelievable.
Funny.
So yeah. Well, Blair, I appreciate you jumping on here and joining me. I learned much more about you than I have been able to through Instagram over the last couple of years of following you. I love the voice that you have. I love your passion for it. And before, we wrap up, the one thing that I do with all guests is kind of give you the floor and just kind of put your message out there for the sober curious, the the folks in early sobriety and even those folks that have some long-term sobriety, we can always use the advice. So.
Oof, that's a big group of people to give advice to. I just think, and this probably just comes with age, but like life is just short. I think you really have to figure out like if the way you're spending it is really like benefiting you, or is it just getting you by? Are you just getting through the days to get through the days? Are you actually like enjoying your time? Like whether it be, I'm not somebody who's going to work at a job that I don't like. So just do the things that make you happy. If you don't want to do something, don't do it. Nobody's requiring you to do whatever. So like that goes for new sobriety, right? Like an event or something like that. If you don't feel comfortable going to an event because you're newly sober, then don't go. I could go on, but I just like do more of what makes you happy, right? Isn't that a quote that you see on things? And if you want to quit drinking, you can. Like this is me saying you can do it. Like you think you can't, but you really can, and it's worth it. I think. I know it's worth it.
Yeah, this side of sobriety is definitely something once you get here. And I think your message of just do what makes you happy, that for many of us that some point in our sobriety or in our addiction, we were not happy with what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, what we saw around us and what we thought was normal is what we were doing. And so I think your advice of just don't do it. Just don't do what you don't want to do.
Easier said than done. I know for some people.
It very much is. But I think that that's one of the first stepping stones is just realizing that you don't have to do it. You just don't have to. And there's plenty of tools, there's plenty of platforms, and there's plenty of people like us to reach out to. So yes, absolutely. Well, Blair, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening. It's actually not a weekend. I felt I had today.
Oh, today is my Friday. Today is my Friday. So
yes, today was my Saturday. I actually had the day off.
Okay.
I was granted
so you
all
work
these.
Tomorrow?
No, I'm off.
Okay.
I'm off.
So tomorrow will be your Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
So like you said earlier, what is time, right?
Right. What is time?
One day off, and I'm already lost in the word. So, that's great. Well, again, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I look forward to following along in your journey, and I'm glad our paths crossed in this recovery and sobriety journey, and look forward to following along in it.
Same. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Blair.